Hari Om, good evening to all. Let us begin this beautiful evening with prayers.
समस्त जन कल्याणी निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ हरि ओम to all. Satyam, truth. Can truth be different yesterday, different today, and different tomorrow? If it is, then it is not Satyam. Life is truth. Life is yours. Kindle it.
Yes, Jagdish. On this quest of truth, on our journey to know the truth, to find the truth, we have also come across the non-apprehension of the truth, which we call avidya, complete ignorance of the truth. And then our intellect also is veiled, which we are knowing now as avaran, which has covered our intellect. And further still, this mind which remains ever agitated or called vikshepa mana. So this which not only denies not understanding ignorance, but projects a false image which has created a world of plurality. Our ancient masters, our sages, our rishis have experienced this truth, and having experienced the truth have guided us through philosophy and religion towards knowing the truth. And this knowing the truth in our Shastra is called darshan, or this is the darshan Shastra. Samskriti, our refined Samskriti, which has given us the Sanatan philosophy, on which which is based on the Vedas. And what have the Vedas given us? The quintessence of the Vedas are the Mahavakyas. Each Veda has got many Mahavakyas, multiple Mahavakyas, not just one. But amongst the many, one has been chosen, and we are calling these four particular Mahavakyas, one from each Veda. We have already seen Prajnanam Brahma. This is from Rig Veda of Aitariya Upanishad. Tattvam Asi. This is from Samaved Chandogya Upanishad. Ayam Atma Brahma. It is from Atharva Ved, Mandukya Upanishad. And finally, Aham Brahma Asmi, Yajurved, Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. So what are these Mahavakyas actually? These Mahavakyas are our connection to that reality. They are the indicative statements. Indicative of what? Indicative of the relationship between us or between the Atma within us to that Param Atma which is pervading everywhere, which we also now know as the Chitta Akasha, the substratum in which everything is there. So this is what the Mahavakyas do for us. It is also shown to us that the truth that we are seeking or we are trying to experience is not something which is experienced in bits and pieces. Not that today I had a little bit of experience and tomorrow now I will have a little more. No. Once You have had the experience. That experience is complete and total. It is not something which you get in stages. It is a complete experience. And how to receive this experience? This also our rishis have very, very generously and graciously showed us 4 different ways, which will most of the people will, for all of the people actually, will fall in one or the other category of this. And these are the 4 yogas. Yoga, which we know, comes from the Sanskrit word yuja, which means union. Union of what? Now we very clearly know the union of this Atma with the Paramatma. And the 4 yogas which are there, we also know which are there. What are the 4 yogas?
The first, as we say, is Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. And then the Hatha Yoga, or even the total of all these together.
So these are the 4 paths also shown to us. And this is what once again Gurudev telling us, that what is all this for? For whom is it? Why are they telling us all of this? This is for you, for me, for each one of us. So the chapter today that we are going to begin, chapter number 24, life is yours, kindle it. That avaran, that avidya, which has gathered for God knows how many, literally millions of births. You don't know which births you've had earlier, which births you may have later on. But what you know is in this birth, in this life, you have that opportunity to stop this cycle of rebirth again and again and to experience the truth. And that is why, once again, the appeal of Gurudev, of these rishis, of these Mahatmas, that kindle it, kindle that flame which wants to learn, which wants to know, which wants to take you ahead, and drop this avaran, drop this tamas, drop this avidya. So let us carry forward now, dropping all of this and very positively marching ahead on our journey. Life is yours, kindle it. The indifference to religion of the apparently educated man of today is not so much due to the futility or hollowness of the science of religion as such, but his own incapacity to understand the textbooks of religion in the world. Generally, it is even our own experience that if we don't understand something or don't agree with something, we tend to blame that particular thing for our inefficiency. And this is very much so what happens or what has happened to religion over time. This is true not only of Hindu, but also of men of every faith. This difficulty in accommodating the old ideas to the new of thinking is felt by the faithful of all the established religions all over the globe. True religion never dies. Hinduism is not dead. If on the wayside we find the extending branches of a dry tree, naked of leaves and flowers, it is possible that in our hurry we may consider that to be the skeleton of a dead tree that was once gloriously alive. Now, however, it spreads no shadow and protects but a few pilgrims under its thin shade. And yet, a lover of trees who knows the art of farming discovers some parasites flourishing on the withered tree. The sight of this parasitic growth is sufficient for the scientist to have a vision of the sap that runs in the core of the seemingly dead tree. He need not cut the trunk down to see if the sap is still running. Even if the tree over time, once which was flourishing with leaves and flowers and which was giving shade to so many more people, the birds, and giving us the fruits, and now it has come to that state where it is a dry tree with a very thin shadow, protecting only a very few people. Yet, a person who has knowledge, who knows, when he sees that tree, he observes that even now on that tree there are many parasitic growths. That means the sap, that element which gives it life, is still there. He does not have to cut the tree to find that sap. Because there are other elements which he finds on the tree, he deduces from that the sap is still there. Similarly, Hinduism is proving today that it has no widespreading shadow to shelter the whole community. Bereft of its leafy roof, it has the inauspicious look of some grinning skeleton in the sepulchre. That is a very sad analogy. A sepulchre, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct, please excuse me, but it is what in Catholics or the Christians, they have this tomb-like room where they put the corpses or the dead bodies inside. So it has where the bodies eventually turn into skeletons, of course. So this is what Gurudev is comparing it to. But since the great Hindu tree continues to nourish and maintain many a parasitic growth, a true cultivator of religion takes heart and cries, "This is not dead. The sap is still running. This can be revived." Unfortunately, we have seen over time what has become to the religion, what it is meant to be, and what it has come, and why there are so few people who actually want to learn and who want to go ahead in this. All of this is so much true.
No doubt that it is directly mentioning of a religion called Hinduism. But what Gurudev is trying to indicate is us individuals, bereft of what religion we are in. We have come so far away from our own real core, the self. But the self is alive because the parasitic body is still alive. This is what the indication is.
Yes, very true. Just as the farmer, in reviving the dead tree, would ruthlessly remove the parasites, intelligently cut down the unnecessary burden of its extending branches, loosen the soil at the roots, and nourish it with regular supplies of fresh soil and food, so too the tree of our religion can be redeemed, trimmed, and revitalized with the nourishing salt of understanding and the true waters of sincere seeking. What does it mean when we say parasites? This lethargy of ours, not wanting to know anything. This lethargy of ours which tells us, what is the use? I am so happy living in this world. I am getting everything I want. What is the need for anything more? This is one of the parasitic growths. The others are also, when you don't understand something, you stand up and say, "Oh,
Condemning it.
you condemn it. This is wrong. This cannot be." So many a times there is lately a word called Hindutva going on. In Hindi, and of course in Sanskrit, the word tattva. Tattva means the very essence. What is the tattva of a particular thing? That tattva makes that particular thing. Like the tattva of a fire is its heat. Without heat, can there be fire? No. So the tattva is the heat, the burning of that fire. So similarly, the tattva of Hindu cannot be separated. It cannot be Hindu. I am a Hindu, but I'm not Hindu. I don't believe in Hindutva. It is silly.
Senseless, it's logicalless.
So it cannot be like this. And this is without understanding what we are actually saying or what we mean by saying something else. We just simply nod and agree because we have conceived it to be something completely different. Or we are getting forced. You remember how we have also learned about the higher force intelligently when our decisions are changed. So if you are a weak person inside, and if somebody more powerful than you imposes their ideas upon you and you meekly start agreeing. And why will this happen? This will happen when you are not confident about your own roots, your own culture, your own knowledge. And when the roots of anybody, you, me, society, country, become weak, the tree will fall. The tree will get parasites on it, which will try to suck away all the sap which is there. And this, a beautiful person, a farmer, a person who knows how to nourish, a person who is a cultivator. In the ancient past, it was the Rishis Munis who were doing that for us. Today also, we are fortunate enough to have these men of vision, these saints, and then it becomes our dharma, our kartavya also, to carry it forward, to understand it, because this is what is giving us our identity. And that is why we must do it. So let's now, after having understood this, see what Gurudev wants to further tell us. Then shall the children of the present discover, through a thorough study of our ancient scriptures, that modern science and ancient religion are not such strangers as they assume them to be. So today also, the modern science today is also very much connected to that ancient religion of yesteryears, which we would call an ancient religion. When I say religion, I do not claim it an application only to Hinduism. It is as much true of Hinduism as of any other religion in the world today. The truth is one. It is applicable to everybody universally, everywhere.
In all three periods of time, past, present, and the future, truth cannot be changed. Truth is one. Ekam Nityam Achalam.
Yes. Unfortunately, we have come to identify the term religion with stony edifices of temples and mosques, churches and synagogues, pagodas and gurudwaras, with different sacred books, endless and varying interpretations, confusing rituals, and in their name, painful mutual quarrels resulting in hatred and violence. This is often the result of the colossal ignorance of what is true religion. Let's read further. Religion is to be understood essentially as the science of living. This coming paragraph is incredibly important and very beautifully written, explaining us the correct meaning of what religion is supposed to be. Religion is to be understood essentially as a science of living, so that we may cull out of it a set of desirable values of life. Choose care, cull means to choose carefully, to remove carefully, upon which we can rebuild wisely our day-to-day existence. If the existing religion is too old, outmoded, and obsolete, and if the fundamental values of life preached by it cannot solve our day's problems, we shall without regret discard the whole lot and strive to discover new principles and laws of right living. If religion is but a dictatorial declaration of a scheme of living which has no reference at all to our day-to-day existence and cannot solve our pressing problems, we shall banish the old religion and take to a new culture and a more desirable cult, for man is and should be primarily concerned with his life here rather than in the hereafter. Nobody can guarantee what happens to us after our death. What we know is the life that we are leading, which is around us. And this is also the beauty of what we call today as Hindu religion. One of the reasons also that it has stayed alive and nicely for ages and through the great civilizations is because it had that capability and the ability to adopt. What was not good about it was eventually over time dropped off. What was good about it was always molded to suit by what is religion? Religion is that aspect of our life which is related to the philosophy and scriptures, which helps us in day-to-day living, which is there to guide us through our problems, if it is not doing any of these things, if it is not elevating us, if it is not taking us higher, our mind, our intellect, our bodies even, with yoga we have seen this, then it cannot be religion. So religion is that aspect which helps us in our day-to-day life to elevate us, to take us on the path of knowledge. So religion and philosophy have to go together,
Hand in hand.
hand in hand. One without the other is not right. It cannot be. It may, over here one B is extra, it may reasonably be asked, why should a man hunt after the knowledge of a greater reality, of a greater power behind the obvious, the perceived, the experienced world of senses? In fact, we find there is no institution called religion among the animals. The necessity for religion, the urge for spiritual freedom, the call from the depths within ourselves is experienced only by man, and even then it is not felt by all men. How clearly we have seen this? Religion is not for animals. Unfortunately, they don't have that faculty, that understanding. But man is called the crown of creation, has that ability.
Of the four men, we'll revise
We have
ourselves.
seen all those, what four types of men were.
Stone men, then the plant men, then the animal men, then the man men.
Yes. So these man men which are there, they have that ability to understand what it means when we say religion. So the necessity for religion, the urge for spiritual freedom, the call from the depths within ourselves is experienced only by man, and even then it is not felt by all men. Now we know, Jagdish has just again reminded us, why it is not felt by all men. We know that. In every generation, it is inevitable that a significant minority should feel a thirst for inquiring into this great reality. Why a glorious minority alone comes to feel the urge to face this vital problem has been exhaustively dealt with in our old text and has been vaguely hinted at by Darwin in his theory of evolution. Before we go further, two explanations here. It is not only in this age, but it gets worse as time passes. But even from the earlier times, there were people who will always be in minority who will want to know and go ahead on this path of realization and truth. More of the people will, it does not matter to them, and because it does not matter to them, they will either go down in their lives or just remain where they are. There will be no growth for them.
Evolution.
Evolution is always for growth, for betterment. And secondly, Darwin, I think we all know, Charles Darwin, he was a scientist of biology who had the theory of evolution, whereby he had explained that we human beings have, Homo sapiens, have so-called come from the primitive apes, the animals, and we have gradually evolved to becoming human beings.
What we are today.
Or present age today. So this was his theory. He seems to explain to us that life, though it started as an accident, went on multiplying and developing into various levels of evolutions to reach its cumulative achievement in the thinking being called man. Therefore, Darwin suddenly rockets up all his readers into a utopian joy with this optimistic promise that evolution will still continue to accomplish itself in a generation of supermen. So according to him, the human beings will also evolve and eventually become supermen.
All of us will be supermen.
If this biologist prophet were true in his conclusions, we have to accept that the ape or ape man somehow lost his tail and started daily shaving to become a man of today. Thus, from the animal kingdom, evolution extended itself to flourish in the achievements of a full-grown man. But here again has obviously been a period of transition wherein we find beings of animalistic instinct in the form of men. behaving and acting as though they were not better than mere animals. For these beings which live through the equipment of the animal, though men in shape and form, it is hardly possible to rise above the values entertained by the animal kingdom. So animals, just when they are hungry, they want to eat. When they want to breed, they copulate and they create more population. And they want to protect themselves mainly and sometimes their children. But when it suits them, many of the animals even eat their own children.
Yes.
So you see these kind of traits even in human beings. To them, religion cannot have direct or immediate appeal at all. But to those who have long since passed this stage and have grown through the vicissitudes of life into beings better developed mentally and intellectually, challenging questions begin to pose themselves. Where did all these things come? Where did all these things come from? Where do they go and why? Is there a mission and purpose in life, or is life a mere accident? As we evolve, these questions will arise. The wonderment of the life. How is it that this insentient, inert matter lives? How is that it moves? And once it is moving, how is it that in moments suddenly it becomes a dead body again? What happens? Where does that consciousness go? What is it? What is all this magic going on? What is this world? This earth, these planets, this universe, how do these gigantic balls just float in space? What is happening? So all these kind of questions, when they start arising in your mind, that is the time that you are evolving, wanting to find the truth behind all of these questions. To these developed beings, religion has a meaning and a purpose and shows the path and the goal. No religion is possible in the world without a philosophy. And philosophy always tries to explain to us the world in which we live and the causes for the same. Here indeed is a fundamental difference between the concepts of philosophy entertained in the East and in the West. So philosophies always try to explain what is the world in which we live and what is the cause for that. But yet, there is a difference between the thought process of the philosophy in the Western world and in the East.
And our philosophy.
Extrovert by nature, philosophy to the Westerner is to a great extent an objectified science. To them, philosophy points out a view of life, what they see, their vision. The ideal may and does often change, with the result that we have a new ideal in the West almost every decade.
Therefore, some years ago, we see people who rise up and they think they are the purest race and they should rule over the world. Then another thought comes, no, we should all have equality. There is no space for democracy, so we should only be communist and we should be together. These all ideas come like that every few generations.
So their philosophy is always for the outer objective world.
Objective world only.
In the East, philosophy means something more than an attempt to show a view of life. For the Aryans were the most practical of men. They demanded that the ideas and the ideals preached by the philosopher should be capable of being practiced. And so, every philosopher was compelled not only to paint a glorious picture of the ideal world, but also to give the topography, the route to it in all detail. Thus, to the East, philosophy was not only a view of life, but a way of life as well. Philosophy in the Eastern world was not just something which was written and told, okay, now follow this. No. Those people who told and explained the philosophy lived their lives according to that philosophy. The students questioned the philosophy, and the teachers, the masters had to explain this philosophy and give them the path and the route. And finally, the result also had to be experienced that what they were talking about really is there. And this was the difference, that it was not just a view of life, but it was the way of life. The philosophy pointing out the view of life can certainly be scientific, but it would lack the technique, and science without a technique is a mere fable for children to read. Fable means story. With this point of view in mind, when we try to investigate into the religions of the world, we shall find that of all the existing religions, Hinduism, in its Vedantic philosophy, supplies us with not only a mere enumeration of the enduring foundations upon which a peaceful world of progressive living can be organized, but also an eminently satisfactory line of argument to establish why those values are absolute and fundamental. What an incredibly wonderful chapter. I urge all of you to read the last paragraph once again. This particular chapter, as its name, is that life is yours. Kindle it. Think about this. Spark that imagination within you. Spark that light within you, that knowledge of light, and see what a beautiful philosophy Vedantic philosophy is.
For you.
And remember this, that Vedantic philosophy was not meant only for Indians or for Hindus. It was the most logical and most incredible philosophy for all of humanity. So we finish our session over here today and look forward very much for the next tomorrow. Let us end this session with prayers as usual.
We cannot thank enough these gurus, but we will try. Om Asato ma Satgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamrutam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Hari Om.